This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your safari today, your sunrise safari, and we're giving you a beautiful, stunning view of our skies from the sunrise. Isn't it just magical? Good morning, my name is Lauren Sarah Arthur and I do have David Norman Easter on camera. And a big warm welcome to all the families joining us today, especially families from India, USA and Kazakhstan. It is great to have you on board. Sit on. Put your seatbelts on, although we don't really use seatbelts on safari vehicles, but sometimes the roads are so bumpy that we should. And get ready to ask us lots of questions because we're live. We are sitting here right now watching the sunrise with you all. The email address will pop up on screen, but send your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. And I'm very excited about this morning's drive. I have a good feeling. It's full moon, so there was lots of light last night. It's rather pleasant, 16 degrees Celsius and 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Technically chilly in my boots, but I've got lots of layers on, so do not worry. I've got a pair of gloves on hand as well. So I have absolutely no plan for this morning. Oh, wow, look at that. You can see the mist rising. There's a difference between mist and fog. And I would say that this is mist, slightly lighter than fog, and it's starting to rise out of the depth into the air. Ah, so exciting. I have no plan, I'm just going to bumble around. So as I start my bumble, there's someone else waiting on quarantine not too far away from me to say good morning.
Now, that quarantine has got nothing to do with my state of health. I'm entirely healthy. The clearings outside of our camp are very unfortunately named quarantine, and so when presenters refer to quarantine, they are referring to the clearings outside our camp. It is not because we are in some way in quarantine. In fact, it's an extremely unfortunate expression, especially at this time in human history. So, there it is. We are sitting here with some impala and some wildebeest. My name is James Hendry. On camera today, for the first time in a long time, we have got a bokomoso. There is his thumb, recently returned disease-free from Johannesburg. Lovely to have you all with us this morning. It's a lovely fresh morning, and especially a welcome to those that are between the ages of 0 and 18. You can send your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. If you are sort of 14 to 18 and thinking to yourself, I'm not really a kid anymore, you are, of course, correct, but we don't have a email address that is teenagers' questions or adolescents' questions at wildearth.tv. So just for today, if you want to ask a special question, you can send it to kids. I know you're not a kid anymore, don't worry. Lovely misty start. I think that's our... It's not that misty. In fact, we've just missed it up a bit. Good. Okay, well, lovely to have you all with us. Let's send you all the way up to Ngala now, where Nikki is sitting at a waterhole where no doubt the mist is rising off the surface.
Good morning, everyone. We're here at andBeyond in Ngala. So we just found this hippo at this one waterhole. We came to see if we can find the lions, and we were so lucky to find the hippo. So I'm Nikki. I'm going to be the guide this morning, and then with me is Marcel. And just thought, let's have a look, especially early on in the morning, at a beautiful waterhole. Now, often when we do see the hippos here, they're quite far away, so it's pretty nice seeing this one a bit closer. You can just see those little ears piercing through the water. Oh, there's another one that just came up in the back. Now, it's quite amazing. I don't know if everyone heard that. So I do know there's quite a few kids that are watching it, and I have told the story the other day, but I don't know if some of the kids are interested in hearing the story about why the hippos laugh, or the little folklore that I'd love to share. But I'd love to hear from the kids if you heard that. If so, I won't tell it again, but if you haven't, I'm happy to do so. Look at that. So the story was, when I was a young boy, I remember my grandfather used to tell me the story about why hippos laugh. And so the one day we were doing a walk along this river, and the next moment this hippo popped out of the water and went like, ooh, and I got such a big fright because I didn't know what it was and I didn't know what's going to happen, and I was scared. And my grandfather said to me, Nikki, those are hippos laughing. And I said, hippos laughing? And he said, yeah. And he said, hippos are very good animals in the animal kingdom. So they can't just go around and tell naughty jokes and gossip because the other animals look up to them. It's almost like a role model. So what they do now is they go under the water where nobody can hear them. And they start telling these naughty and filthy jokes. And then they burst out of the water and go like, ooh. They start laughing about it. But that was the little story. So while we're going to carry on, look for some lions this morning, possibly leopard, let's head across to Lauren with a caterpillar.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Karongwe Game Reserve. Before I introduce myself, I want you to watch something really fascinating, because this is something that I haven't seen ever in my entire life other than on YouTube videos. Now, for all the children that are watching, this is a type of caterpillar. I don't know what caterpillar it is. I think it belongs to one of the moths, so it will turn into one of the moths. But what it's doing is so fascinating. It is coming out of its skin, literally. So it's not shy anymore. No, I'm just joking. So what happens for these little caterpillars is obviously they start as an egg, and then they hatch, and then they eat as much as they can, and they grow bigger. So what's happening now is that it has grown so big, it has eaten so much that it can't fit into its skin anymore, and it has to shed that skin in order to grow even bigger. This is so crazy. When we found it this morning, it was in the car, so it must have fallen off a bush and into the vehicle. Yeah, I've just put it on the guarri branch that I had stashed in here. I thought, it's not moving around because it's been really, really cold, so maybe it will warm up in the sun, because they aren't able to keep the same temperature throughout their body, just like humans. So on cold days, they become quite dormant, so they sit very still for a very long time until it's warmer. So this is really amazing. I never thought that I'd ever see something like this. And they will have to shed their skin many, many times before they will make a cocoon and then turn into either a butterfly or into a moth. Now, we've seen these caterpillars plenty times, but I don't know if we've successfully identified them. Now, Kalina, you've exclaimed, oh, heck no. Why? This is amazing. This is just one of nature's beauties. And I wonder if it's going to eat its skin afterwards. Maybe not at this age, but when they're smaller, I know that they sometimes will shed their skin and eat it. But you can see it's covered in hairs. Can you see that? Although its face is still wet, it looks like it's just showered. Kind of looks like me when I wash my hair. That's what I look like, with my hair everywhere. So it's going to have to wait until it dries a little bit. But those hairs, when they are dry, will stand up straight. And this is actually how the caterpillar protects itself. And if you touch those hairs on a very sensitive part of your body, you're going to start to itch. So sometimes what happens to us as safari guys when we're driving through the bush is that we feel something itchy down our shirt, and it's normally because a little hairy caterpillar has found its way down there, and it can cause some horrible irritations. It's almost finished. It's almost climbed out. This is so crazy. I was so confused as to what it was doing because it wouldn't move, it wouldn't stay on the stick, and I was trying to... There it is, it's out now. Now, Alexander, who's only 6 years old, all the way from South Africa, well, not, a couple of 100 kilometers from here, you've asked about where's its eyes and ears. Well, this, I'm going to try and show you this side of the caterpillar that Alex is showing you. This is the front, and you can't really see the eyes right now, but they're not like you and I that have got very well-developed eyes and ears, and they will have a very basic form of that. But unfortunately, it's got all this hair, so we can't really see very nicely. And I don't think that this creature maybe even has a brain. It might have something called nerve ganglia, which are just sort of sense organs, and it helps it navigate. But I'm actually not too sure. I'll have to do a bit of reading about caterpillar senses. But this is the front end. So can we have a look? I want to see if we can see inside the skin. It'll be so amazing. Sorry, that's my hand getting in the way. I'm shining a torch on it because the sun hasn't quite risen just yet. I can't wait till this caterpillar moves off of the stick completely and onto my book so that we can have another look at the skin. I think it's exhausted now. It's just sort of stopped moving. It looks like a drenched rat. That is possibly one of the top 10 coolest things I've seen in the bush. And I know you're probably like, that's ridiculous, Taylor, because it's not it's not something like a lion running around chasing something or cute cheetah cubs, but this is fascinating, and I don't think most safari guides get to see this. Shall we have a quick look at the beautiful view? And I suppose I should introduce myself at some point. Hello, everybody. The name behind the voice is Taylor. Obviously messed that one up. And on camera with me today is Alex Shapiro. There he is. And like I said, we're on Karongwe Game Reserve, but we're not going to stay all day with this caterpillar. I'm probably going to put it out in the bush somewhere, and then we are going to head north to try and find the cheetah. So that's what we've been following here at Karongwe Game Reserve, is the story of the 3 male cheetah. And then we've also been following a female cheetah who's got 2 young cubs, and they had a bit of an argument recently. So that's the direction that we're going to be heading in. Off we go to Lauren, who is sitting with one of the most ultimate predators.
I have just spotted fresh tracks, as I heard live there. So my apologies, sorry, I've got my head down. Darby, I think you'll be able to see them. Shall I jump out? Let's see if I can show you these tracks so that I can actually have a better look at them myself, because I've just spotted them. So, you are walking north on Zoe's. Do you see them, Darby? We've got one here. Definitely a male Panthera pardus, which is a leopard. Every animal we have out here has a Latin name. Okay, now let me just walk to see where we're going. I think we're going up this way. I believe we are. These look really, really fresh. Many people ask us, how do we know that they're fresh? Well, it's actually not easy. It's really, really tricky. And it does depend on a few things. I've lost them, but this terrain gets different. So I'm going to try and show you. Here is a good example. So this is soft sand. If I was to put my hand like this, I'm sure Davy can show you, you can see that my handprint is now there. And the edges of where the sand met my hand is very crisp. I think that's a good word. Really crisp, really sharp, and really defined. If this handprint was a day old, it would have experienced wind, dust, animals moving, vehicles moving. So watch what happens. You can see it, Darby, yeah? You can see my handprint is still there. I don't know if this is a good enough example, but it's not as sharp. It's not defined. These edges are no longer crisp, so I would know this handprint is not fresh. Well, and also, one more example. If we just jump over here, the ground, the terrain, the substrate is completely different. That's soft sand. This is not. If I put my handprint here, can you see it? I can. And I'm right next to it. And that's because it's too hard here. There's rock underneath here. So this leopard, just let me quickly check, I think has walked this way. Where did you go? I have lost your tracks because the substrate has changed. Okay. I think walk this way. I know Trishala and Davi had Hukamuri 2 nights ago. but these tracks are far too fresh for that. So we're going to follow them. It's definitely a male. Let's see if we can find out who has walked this way. So going back to the tracks, it's really not easy to tell how fresh they are. You just have to sort of, 1, look at the crispness of the edge, 2, look at the substrate that the tracks are on, and 3, use your knowledge. Jason, you're 8 years old in Singapore. I'm just going to get Davi to turn the volume down a smidge. Kirst's beautiful voice is so loud in my ear. And yes, you can. So by looking at the track, you will know if it's male or female, especially with the leopards. And this is really done by size. Yeah, I've still got these tracks. So the female leopards are actually a lot smaller than the males. If you go by the sizes that you're given in textbooks, it says that females are normally around 30 to 60 kilograms. So that is 60 to 120 pounds thereabouts, whereas the males are said to be between 60 to 90 kilograms. That's 120 to 180 pounds, or almost 200 pounds. So there's quite a substantial difference in male and female leopards, and therefore their tracks will differ. Females are very small, very petite. If you ever see Tlalamba or Tandi or Kuchava, their tracks are tiny. The males are much bigger. So you can tell the sex by looking at the tracks, and obviously younger, smaller males will have smaller tracks. Bigger males will have bigger tracks. So you can tell roughly what you're looking at, but it's also hard to know the individual. I don't appear. Yep, I've still got them. So you can guess the individual by knowing the road you're on. I'm in the west, so it can only be a male that uses the west. It really can only be Hukamuri or Mowati, we think. Not really Tingana, but you could be wrong. So you've got to just use the knowledge that you have of the leopards that move in this area. Know their territories and know the road that they take. And this is a little junction. I just want to check here. Zavi will check his side. My assistant. Okay. Have you got any tracks, Zavi? I think I've got them here. Isaac, you are 12 years old from Arizona, and you're asking about zebras. Well, it really depends. They're highly mobile animals, which means they move great distances to find water. So sometimes we see zebra all the time, and they're on quarantine beside the impala, hanging out with all the antelopes there, and sometimes we don't see them for days and days and days. But they are around. They travel together in herds. They live the herd life. But we don't always see them. They do move a lot, and they do move for water. They're highly dependent on water. Not all animals are, but zebras are. So hopefully we'll get some zebra around here soon. I love a good black and white stripy animal, don't you? Okay, let me just pull over, check that I'm still on the tracks. Okay, as I try to find these tracks, we are going to send you back across to James and see what he's up to.
I am driving through the mist. It is very misty where we are. There is a bird. We will look at that bird on the road. A Birchall's starling, which is looking for ants, I think. Yes, I'm sure it is eating ants. Phew, it's cold. 16 degrees Celsius, it says on the weather. I don't think it's that hot. I think it's about 14 or so. Let's just have a listen to the dawn chorus. It's so far away. BK, just swing very slowly. There's a mongoose on the road looking at us.
Oh?
No, it's gone. Never mind.
Really?
It's gone. It was round the corner. There's a little slender mongoose. I knew that as soon as you moved, it would unfortunately run. Let's now hie our way up north to andBeyond Ngala, where the famous white lions of the Djuma have made a reappearance in the Birmingham Pride.
So we just located that pride. So just after we went to that waterhole where we saw that hippo, we came back to see where the pride were seen last night, and we actually found them here. They haven't moved too far. You'll see all the grass around them has been flattened out. So this is where they probably moved and slept during the whole evening. See, the one just got up, started stretching. Be interesting to see if they're going to move this morning. Maybe head down to the water for a drink. So at the waterhole, we didn't see any tracks. So there's a good chance after a good meal that they might eventually head there. I just want to, Marcel, would you be able to get this white youngster? So I'm just going to lean out of the way so Marcel can look over, mate. But it does look like she heard something in the grass, and I wonder if it wasn't a mouse or maybe a francolin. Trevor Day School, I would say most of the animals are, like, it would be hard to say if they're accurately portrayed. But in some senses, with the lions, especially I think with Simba, he would have definitely led the pride. But then, of course, the females would have done most of the hunting. So I would do say most of it would be very accurately displayed. But if we do see some of the characters, maybe I would say, see this big lioness that stood up here? Would it be safe to say she'll be like a Ngala? The female that was a sibling, or not a sibling, but half sibling, a friend of Simba, and then eventually when she grew up, she went to go and fetch him and bring him back so that he can be king. So we haven't seen Simba. I would say Simba would probably be that young male that's been kicked away. So we need to try and see if we can get him, and he'll probably be Simba. But I haven't noticed what she was doing. I don't know if you've seen, she urinated and she scratched her feet through it. And that's just her way of marking her territory. Now, there was something earlier on that moved, because even that lioness, that's the one that moved up, is one of the main hunters of this pride. And so if she gets up, there's a good chance the rest of the pride might start following her. Now the wind, so the direction those lions are moving in, the wind's actually coming from that area towards us. You can actually smell these lions this morning after that meal from yesterday, and they have quite a strong smell. But you can see, look at the others. Look at how they're focusing on the ones that have moved off. Now that young white lion, Zara 8 California, like lions, would probably hunt early part of the morning, late in the afternoon. But if there's a chance, or into the evening as well, but if there's a chance of them hunting in the day, they'll take it. Now, these lions made a kill yesterday, probably around 10 o'clock. No, more around about just after 9 o'clock in the morning. And which is normally not their ideal hunting time. Their hunting time would be early on, or late in the afternoon, maybe early into the evening. But the thing is with them, they're very opportunistic. They just never know when their next meal is going to be. So even at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, if there's something that presents itself, they will definitely use that opportunity. You can see all of them have started getting up and moving. Now, there's actually two bigger lionesses laying here. So we know that the others might come back unless these two stand up. Because if they stand up, the one that you see on the screen closest to us, and then there's just one off to the right that's laying in the grass. You can barely see this line. in this golden grass. But as soon as they get up and start moving, there's a good chance that the pride will then start heading off from there. Now, there are quite a few vultures in the area as well. You'll see that one's head is actually moving. The one further on the screen is actually looking up, and that's looking at a vulture that just flew over. Clara 5 from Singapore. There, at the moment, I just wanted to count again, because there's a few members out of this pride. So I just want to put my head together and count. So there's 4 females here with their youngsters, and then 2 others. So probably around 14, 15 lions at the moment. I just want to see when the whole pride gets back to make sure that all of them are here, because I didn't see everyone once we arrived. But of course, if those other young male would be with them, as well as the Ross males, the 2 bigger males, then of course it would be 3 extra, maybe 4 extra with that other female that is currently denning. But we'll have to see once all of them are back to see how many are currently here with them. Just have a look at this one lioness that's laying down right on this side here. Have a look at the color of her eyes, but also just look at her face. Now, often for me, whenever I look at a lion, it tells so many stories. Like you can see just on her left ear, like the very top of the ear, there's quite a bit of hair missing. You'll see on the neck, there's a little patch out, and then quite a few scars around the face. Now, whenever you look at lions like this, it tells, as I said, it tells, of course, a lot of stories. But this lioness is definitely not a very young lioness, because often the younger they are, the less scratches, the less injuries they have. And the older they get, more often you see more and more injuries, more scratches. Sometimes when they make a kill, there's often a bit of a fight around the carcass or whatever they killed. And then sometimes they can get scars around their face, especially behind their neck. There's a vulture that just landed up in the tree. Look at how those lions are carefully looking at that vulture. Just have a look. Just see which type of vulture it is. Now, if you look at the face of this one, you'll notice it has quite a bit of pink on the chin, quite a sharp bill. It's called a hooded vulture. But while we're going to stick with these lions a little bit longer and see where they might be up to, or where they might move from here, let's head across to Taylor with a beautiful sunrise.
Look at this beautiful view that we have for you. We've managed to catch the sun rising over the mountains in the distance. Well, they're not actually mountains. They are granite rocky outcrops that you can see in the distance. Not part of the Drakensberg. Isn't that gorgeous? It's not very often that we get to see sunrises like this, but this particular spot on Karongwe Game Reserve is a firm favorite with eco training too. It's very nice to wake up super early and come and bring all the students here when we have them in camp and we're doing training, and to get them to experience a real African sunrise. And I don't know when you all last had such a beautiful sunrise. I'm saying this hoping that it's the best one that you've seen in a while. It is very stunning and framed so nicely by Alex as well. I would very much like to sit on that little mountain that you can see on the right-hand side. Can you imagine climbing all the way up to the top of that? I keep calling it a mountain. It's not a mountain. Don't listen to me. But those are granite boulders, like I said. And imagine watching the sun rise from there. It would be quite a climb, though. It would probably take a long time. And I think you'd need to be at least a little bit fit to get up there. I've climbed some of them before, and it's not as easy as it looks. Isaac, now we have to be very careful when there is a storm that comes in, because it can be quite dangerous for us. So if it's a gentle drizzle and your guests are happy to go out on safari, then you give them like a rain jacket, we call them ponchos, and off you go exploring. But if you have, and we do the same things with the students as well here at Eco Training, but if you have unfortunately thunder, lightning, it gets very dangerous, and it can be a little bit unpleasant, obviously with the rain very heavy, and we even had hail the other day. So then we do not want to go out on safari, and there are some gloomy clouds in the distance, but I think as the sun rises, it's just going to burn all those clouds away. So I actually had some of my best game drives in the pouring rain, but that was when I was working as a safari guide. We'd go out and there'd be big thunder and lightning, and we'd hide away, and then the rain would come and it would be windy, and then as soon as it stops and a rainbow comes out, often the guests would be like, that's amazing. And it's very, very good hunting weather for the big cats, so for leopards and lions. They love to hunt during storms. And speaking of somebody who's got lions, let's go see how they're doing with Nikki.
So lekker om je been te trek so vroeg in die oggend. So just behind us at the moment, you'll see this lioness might look back the whole time. So there's actually a hyena that's laying in the grass not too far. See, she's not actually looking at him. What I'll try and do is we'll first see where this hyena goes off, and then we'll try and get the camera on. But it'll be interesting to see how these lions are going to react. Now, often they do not mind the hyenas being around, but as soon as the hyenas get too close, you might find the lions might start chasing them off. But it's just one hyena, so I'm sure this hyena will probably move far away, knowing there are so many lions around. Denzel, age 13, I would say the lions can. So if these lions really wanted to, they can come real close to the vehicle. But what we'll try and do is we'll, of course, as soon as they get too close, we'll just move away to give them a bit of space. But they are free to roam wherever they want to. But just have a look at the scene. I just want to paint a little picture for everyone. So you can see the lions right over here. And just look off to the right. I'm going to ask myself just to look at the sun coming up behind the trees. Just look at how beautiful the scene is. So basically we're sitting here with the sun coming up, a few lions, and then hyenas directly behind us. I don't know if anyone heard that, but that was a lion sneezing. Just want to see where that hyena has gone off to. Murray and Ross, sometimes lions sleep with their legs up because you can imagine after having a big meal, like there's quite a lot, and some lions, I mean like this female that we're looking at now, can eat as much as 15 kilograms of food. So I just want to see, there's a, quickly, where's this hyena? He's behind us at the moment. Okay, so I want to try and see if we can reposition it in a way. I think Marcel might...
It's just over the seat.
Yeah, it's just over the seat. Just listen, I think these lions might start roaring. Oh, it's a little contact call. See, this hyena is moving off, quite a young hyena. Marcel, if I can ask you, have a look here. These two are just having a little play fight. So just to get back to question, so sometimes they'll lay with their legs open because if they had a good meal, their bellies are so full that it's uncomfortable laying on the side. So they lay with their feet open so there's a bit more space for them so they are more comfortable whenever they lay down. Just hear that little one contact calling. Just hear that. Ooh, ooh. Amy 10 from Joburg. That's a very good question. I personally think if they do stumble across a dead lion, the chances are if they had a good meal that they won't necessarily eat the lion, unless there's like a severe drought and there's basically no food. There is a chance they might do it, but it's more hyenas that would probably scavenge off a... Just quickly listen. Do you see how they're calling each other? How amazing was that? So what I think we'll do is we'll slowly start following them and see where they might be up to. The rest of the pride has moved off, just off to the right. So what we're going to do, as I said, let's just move around, see if we can get another glimpse of them. I think right there, look at that little gap there, Marcel, you'll be able to see. I think you can just see the head. So we're going to try and follow them. For now, let's head across to James for an update.
We've had a fascinating morning so far. Just from a sort of bush newspaper point of view, it's what we used to refer to as the roads, the bush newspaper, because all the information of the night occurs in track form on the roads. And last night, of course, was the full moon, and so we had a lot of light. Clearly. And the wild dog pack, or a wild dog pack, came running up our eastern boundary. And when we first found the tracks, it was a bit odd because they were underneath the hippo tracks. And I thought, but that's really strange. And then I realized, of course, that it had been the full moon last night, which means the dogs will hunt. And they killed something. It probably was a scrub hare, just a little patch of blood, and then they carried on up, and they turned around, they came back down. They've gone all over the place, so, we know they're around. Maybe we'll be lucky with them. So that's the interesting time I've been having driving along, in case you were wondering. So we're going to head to that waterhole in the northeast corner, which is Buffels Hook Waterhole. We found the wild dogs there a few times. It's kind of the direction that Tlalamba the leopardess was heading yesterday. So maybe we'll find something interesting there. Quite possibly we'll just find a little bit of mist coming off a totally lifeless surface of water. What happens to termites when they become dens? Or what happens to termite mounds when they become dens? Ah, right. Tamara and Zach, what happens is that the termites normally leave. Sometimes they will be there and share them, but often when a termite mound is excavated thoroughly by an aardvark, if he catches the queen and eats the queen, well then, the mound will die and it will just stay there. And by die, I mean, the termite colony will cease to exist. And sometimes you'll find a big hole in a mound, and then the termites are occupying a different part of the mound. So there's no kind of fixed rule to it, but very often, if a termite mound is extensively used by burrowers, then you'll find that the termites have vacated. or they've been eaten. So if the queen dies, the termite mound cannot continue. And it will cease to be. It will become a ghost town until another creature takes it over. Nice question, that. Hello, James Rashard. You say you're excited about the potential for wild dogs. Yes, I am too. Trouble is that they were on the eastern boundary, and some of the tracks went east into Torchwood, which is the reserve east of us. But, you know, they do run around all over the place, and so perhaps they will pitch up. But they came through here relatively early yesterday. Well, I'm going to say probably, when did I wake up? About 3 o'clock, I think I woke up suddenly, and it was very light outside, and I got a bit of a fright. And that's probably around about when they were moving, because the moon was very bright. Taj, aged 10 in Singapore. Taj, the reason we call the big cats babies cubs is because they're big cats. But it's got nothing to do with biology. It's just an English convention. So in English, we'll call a male crocodile a bull and a female a cow, and a male hippo or whale a bull or a cow, and then we'll call a male sheep a ram and a female sheep a ewe. And there's nothing biological about it. It's just English. So in other languages, you'll call them something else. In some languages, you might even just refer to male and female. So, I'm trying to think. In Shanghai, for example, you'd say Ngala for lion, or a male lion, Ngala Yawanuna, a male lion. It actually sort of directly translated means lion that is a man, or Ngala Yawansati, a lion that is a woman. So in many languages there are no different kinds of words for male and female animals or for their babies. So if I was to say, in a lot of languages like Shanghai again, there's just, you put a little extension on the end of the word to denote a small one. So Ngala, lion, Shingalana, Ana on the end of the word means a small one, a little one. It's just language. So cub, kitten, baby, calf, lamb, it's just English convention. And normally cub just refers to a bigger baby animal, but then of course we refer to hyenas as cubs, we refer to bears as cubs. We don't refer to koala babies as kittens, even though they are small, because kittens are small cats, we know that. It's just English. And English is the least logical. English is the language, Taj, that is the least easy to follow. So if you've grown up speaking it, it's fine, but if you're trying to learn it as an adult, it must be extremely frustrating. I was reading the other day about a very interesting language convention, and that is that some languages and cultures have no designation for left and right. There's no left side or right side. There's only the cardinal points, east, west, north, south. So you really got to know what you're doing. And one of those languages is an Aboriginal language from Australia. And the example that they gave was that if you had to describe to somebody where their phone was, let's say their phone was on the left side of the table in the dining room, you'd have to orientate yourself with the sun and say it's on the eastern side of the table in the western room. You can imagine doing that. So they don't orientate the body with up and down and left and right, which I think is absolutely fascinating, don't you? Right. I thought we'd already closed the kids' session, but we haven't, so now we are going to do it and open the floor open the gates for adult questions, and you can ask us any questions you like using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, otherwise the chat stream on YouTube or Twitch. Kids, you can carry on asking questions too. We've now arrived at the waterhole, where there seems to be about as much action as I've had over the last week or so, so we'll leave here and hand you back over to Nikki up in the north with the lions. Oh, look.
So what we've done now, the lions were on their way down to the water, so we've almost tried to interpret their behavior and see if they're going to come to the water. I can just imagine if they haven't been, the chances are really good that they might head down to the water for a drink. Now, sorry, I just want to try and listen out. So the excitement's just building up too much. I just want to go back a little bit more, but if we give it a couple of minutes, we might find these lions coming down. And imagine getting an early part of the morning and seeing them coming to drink. It is a bit of a risky move, but high risk, high reward. Let's quickly do that. I'm just going to move slightly back, we can organize the camera and we can look down on the water, and hopefully these lions will come down. Can you see them? Okay, so they are coming down. Okay. Okay, would we be able to, oh, there's a few. Here we go. Can I stop like this, Marcel? Yeah. Here we go, have a look. Rachel, the Birmingham Pride got their name from a concession called Birmingham, and that's where they were born. And also where they got their name from. Yeah, let me go slightly back so we can see a bit more of them. I'm just going to go back to roundabout. How's this, Masa? Okay. All right, have a look at that. Oh, wow, that is so beautiful. Because I can just imagine, look at how thirsty they are. After having a big meal yesterday, they didn't go to the water during the evening. And now early on this morning, they decide, okay, we need to come down and drink. There's actually a few other lions that are coming down. I can just see, like through the bits of grass, there's quite a few coming down. But also there's one off to the left that's actually trying to stalk those that are down at the water. So let's see how they're going to react. They're coming down. Look at that youngster, lowering his shoulders. Oh, something pulled off his attention, but often it's so funny to see whenever they stalk each other near the water, they get such a fright, because they're often a bit more wary. You can see some of them looking around. And I think that one off to the right, see the one, it looks like he might be looking straight into the water. It's actually the hippos that he's looking at. And Darcy, and we haven't heard anything about the sub-adult male. We tried to see if we can find them this morning. Look, that one's actually stalking a bird now off to the right. We haven't seen him this morning. We're actually trying to see if we can... there the bird goes. It's a hammerhead. Hammerkop. And very interesting that bird gets the name, because if you look at the head of it, it almost looks like a hammer, hence the name Hammerkop, which is an Afrikaans word. But we haven't seen that Sabberald yet, and it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen with the rest of the pride. Now, earlier on, they started roaring, and when they roared, I could hear a few responding. So I don't know, maybe if... And it wasn't a loud roar, it was more like a contact call. So I don't know if maybe that young male has tried to call and join up with them. So it'd be really worth it for us to stick with them this morning and see if there's any form of maybe the Ross males or even those other male, or that other male joining up with them. See, and just in front of us, before the lines, you can see the Hammerkop bird. See that head almost looks like a hammer? They're the ones often, especially in some of the bigger trees, they have these massive nests when you drive past. And he just thought to himself, there's no way that he's going to be breakfast for a lion, so he'll probably be just keeping a good eye on them. I can actually hear a lion roaring. Let's see how these ones are going to respond. Ruby, I'll try and see if I can... From here, it's really hard to see. Like, and to be completely honest with you, I'm not sure if I'll be able to sell it from here. However, if we do get a little bit closer again, I will try and point her out. But look at how those two are chasing each other. But it is a good question. But if we do get closer, I'll try and show you more or less which mother has which cubs. But as I said, sometimes it's a bit hard, especially from here, because there's often the only way to recognize them is because of old scars on the faces, or possibly a little spot somewhere near the eye. But we'll have to be a little bit closer. So we'll also see, like, there, you can see that white one, and the other one is looking off to their left. Now the other one, or the other two on that side, are actually just stalking each other again. Now, I'm going to ask myself just to go slightly to the one off to the right that's now drinking. Now earlier on, the one on top of that little mount at the back is looking down towards that one. So it'd be interesting if we keep our camera on there and see if that one comes down, and then they start playing again. And even though it looks like they're just having a lot of fun and running around, they're learning so many essential skills of how to catch something, how to pull it down, how to stalk, be quiet. Because especially at that age, they spoil so many hunts, because you can imagine, they don't have all the experience. So often they get overexcited, so they'll see something and immediately start running, where the mother's now, okay, we've got to really use our opportunity here, make as little noise as we possibly can, get as close as we can, and then only start from there on. You can see even this sibling here is very wary and knows that probably with the other one being right there, now he's changed a bit of his behavior, but earlier on, definitely stalking. Look. See that behavior? Typical lion. Pull the shoulders down, use a bit of cover, stretch out the front legs, tuck in the back legs, getting ready to run. Looks like the other one might be eating grass. I wonder if he has a bit of an upset stomach. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, he's just grabbed the stick. I don't know if everyone noticed, but that was quite a half-hearted attempt for him to try and catch one of the siblings. Now, often, that's what happens when they hunt. So the mom would really, like all the lionesses would start getting in a formation to hunt, and then suddenly one of these youngsters just can't wait anymore, and they start running towards whatever they're probably trying to hunt. And because of that, they spoil a lot of hunts, and you'll find that often the females would just leave them in one area and then go and hunt and eventually come and call them. Is there one that's going from the left now, going to join up, feeling like he's probably missed out? I do enjoy following lions, especially early on in the morning. And the youngsters, after a meal, they're always up to a little bit of mischief. It does look like the others might be stalking this one again. Debbie, I agree. It is pretty funny. And it's funny, like, watching them and seeing them. Look at the two white ones are now having a go at each other. So that one's running up with a stick, waiting for the other ones. And then while that's happening, these two are having a go at each other as well. So I could just see the young female jumping on top of this one's back. But we'll see now. So that's the young male that's moving closer to the water, and the younger female is just behind. But how interesting is the contrast of colors between those two? Because from here on, look at even the silhouettes in the water of the two. Marcel, just look to the right of this. You'll see there's a hippo actually coming out of the water, walking closer to the lions. So just have a look off to the right now. You'll see a hippo's just started moving a bit closer. Now, it might not be that the hippo would be interested in the lions of any sort, but sometimes if there's a mother with a youngster around and the lions get too close, the hippo would start making itself look big just to try and intimidate the lions so they can move off. Because it is also quite close to where those other ones were heading off to. Fire Destiny, I think for the hippos as well as and with crocodiles especially, there's no need for them to defend the water because there's quite a bit of water around. Often if there's extreme droughts and there's not a lot of water, they can fight vigorously to try and keep that little bit of water. So sometimes you do find it where they might attack other species for it. But I think in this case, it would more be, especially if those youngsters come too close to the rest of the pod or a raft. So that's what they call a collection of or a group of hippos together. They'll just move them off. Crocodiles, not territorial in regards to, or they're not so, they won't necessarily try and defend the warthog against the lions. However, if a lion gets too close to the water, it has to be careful because a crocodile can potentially see it as a meal. Hippos, on the other hand, won't necessarily attack lions to eat them, but they will, especially if they feel that they are intimidated or they get too close to the youngster, they'll try and chase them away. Just have a look at all the youngsters and I gathered. So the mothers are looking out, making sure everything is safe. And then these youngsters, look at that one stalking again. See, lowering down. Other one's playing with the tree just off to the right. So there's, you can just hear one of the hippos off to the right, and now that's caught the attention of all these little lions. But how elegant is it, just the way that they're sitting down? Look at how that white one has actually crossed his legs. now they become very curious because the hippo moved back into the water. And now they have a lot of confidence. Look at this one stalking again. There we go. Myosotis, I would say no. Unless a baby's been separated from the mother and is away from the water, chances are that lions could possibly go for it. However, with hippos being in the water, there's no chance that lions would go for it. Even if lions had to try, I mean, a hippo, if it really wanted to, with one good bite, would probably be able to chop a lion in half. So the thing is, for lions, they do know that as well, so they'll try and keep their distance away from a hippo. See, the one has a stick again. See, that young female is now taking the stick. I think that bush has become like quite a bit of a toy, because all of them are now digging in the bush, like putting their heads in there, probably biting a few of the... Oh, look at that other one, just grab the cluster of roots. Now, well, it is quite hard for the young males, especially also the female would be more lucky in the sense that she'll probably stay with the pride. But I think once that male is pushed away, I think it will be really hard, unless he can join up with other males and form a coalition. Because often it is, I mean, in terms of camouflage, he's not as well camouflaged as the rest. I mean, look at those ones moving to the left in comparison to the grass. They blend in so well, but look at these two coming closer together. They do stand out quite a bit. So I think for him, he would heavily rely on having some siblings, or possibly other males his age, that will join up with him and form a coalition, because by that, they'll enable them to be more successful, especially when hunting. But still, in saying that though, he will be, especially if he reaches that age, which is quite rare for a wild lion, but if he reaches the age of 6 or 7 years, and he's been able to survive until then, I'm sure he'll be a very effective hunter, because then he'll probably hunt in the middle of the night when it's dark, not in the daytime, and also use as much cover. Now they suggest, so there's quite a few studies that suggest that male lions are more successful hunters when they do hunt in dense areas than females, because the females sometimes have to hunt in open areas. Not always, I mean, they do sometimes, or most of the times also hunt in quite dense areas, but male lions prove to be more successful, and they're able to conceal themselves a lot better than the females, especially in denser areas, so where there's a lot of trees, a lot of cover for them. So just above these ones, you can see they're just stalking each other. There's another bush that's been tackled by another young lion. Look at this one crouching down again. You can just see on the shoulders, as soon as you start seeing the shoulder blades and that head tilted down and the back legs, you know that they might be stalking each other. That was the one just above them. Oh. Here we go. So we're going to stick with these lions for another little while to see where they might be going, and if any of the other lions do join up with them. But for now, let's head across to Lauren for an update.
I don't have much of an update, but there's lots of leopard tracks. There's been lots of leopard activity last night. We have female tracks and we have male tracks, and they all seem to be in the western corner of the reserve. So we've searched high and low. There's hyena whooping, so we try to locate the hyena, but unfortunately, when a hyena whoops, it's more of a sort of contact call. Not so much a territorial call, but it's normally when they're sniffing. They're on the move, they're mobile, and they're trying to locate some delicious meal with their nose. So they whoop. This is this naughty stump that everyone crashes into, and I think Trishala burst a tire on this stump. So yes, lots of hyena whooping, lots of tracks, but sadly, nothing so far. We shall not give up though. We'll do the last part of the western boundary and then we'll head on into Cheetah. See what we can find in the south. I am hoping the sun brings some warmth soon though, because we've had a very cold patch. I don't feel I've wrapped up adequately for these temperatures. Once the sun pops up over the horizon, you get hit with cold air before the warm air comes through. So warm air rises, cold air sinks. So once that sun pops up, it starts to hit you with the cold air. And then slowly, you will feel the warmth of the sun for the day, which is exactly what I'm hoping for within the next 5 minutes. Now, if there's leopards moving in the west, I can only speculate Hukamuri and Shidulu. Could be wrong, but that's what I could speculate. So because they move between these two properties, it's sometimes beneficial to check both sides as you're driving down. We can't drive on this side, I'm afraid we don't have traverse, but at least if we check, somebody may be sitting on a termite mound or in a tree. Termite mounds actually are very warm, especially if they're active, so leopards love to sit on them on cold mornings because they can feel the warmth from underneath. So as I bumble down the western boundary and hopefully find something, we are going to send you back across to James for an update.
We have got a ground scraper thrush and 2 greater blue-eared glossy starlings. There we are. The ground scraper thrush is trotting about just beyond the starling. Now they have very much an overlapping food niche. They will both eat ants, small insects, mice, nuts. No, they don't eat mice and nuts, that's a joke. But dung is a very rich place to be looking for insects and things. And as we go into the dry season, so the insect numbers will diminish quite substantially. And the birds will have to search harder for their food. Many of them don't keep a larder. In the background you can hear the Steerling's wren warbler there. Pss, 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 pss. Oh, another ground scraper thrush coming into land. Look at that. It's all happening here on the eastern boundary. Hello, Brody. You say you love birds. Well, Brody, I love birds too. As you can see, I'm most enthused by the ground scraper thrushes and the greater blue-eared glossy starlings. And the Steerling's wren warbler. Now, our dog tracks, I'm afraid, did not return from the east, so I think they're still in the east. They could come back. Lauren might find them sitting at Cheetah Dam when she gets there. I think we might have to start making our way back towards the Hyena den to see if the cubs are around. You? Tally-ho, you say the greater blue-eared glossy starling is number 154 on your bird list. Well, that's very good. 154 is not bad going for a virtual bird list. That is the black-crowned chogra. These birds seem to be having some sort of relay race down the road. You ever notice how a bird very seldom walks? It either runs or it hops at speed, but it moves from one point to another very quickly. Stop. like my wife when she's typing something on the WhatsApp. They move like her fingers. Well, that was entertaining, wasn't it? Extraordinary dawn entertainment here from the eastern fringes of Djuma. The sun has blinded me momentarily and fried my brain, but now I've reset it. We're going to go back to the north now, where Nicky is still with his lions. My eyes are going to be seeing white for some time.
Should just have a look. They haven't moved too far, and I think they might even be here for a little while longer, especially as soon as it starts warming up, then they might go into a bit of shade. But for now, still having a lot of fun around the waterhole. I'd love to hear... Oi, bless you. Bless you. I'd like to hear from you, Marcel. Which one would you say out of all of these would be your favorite?
From the ones here.
Yeah.
From the ones here, I'd probably say the white female.
The white female.
She's got such a inquisitive gaze.
I tend to agree. She's also one of my favorites in the Pride. I don't have favorites because all of them are my favorite, but I do think she has quite a special place. See, the one just got up, and I think they might start moving back. So let's just see. I can hear some guinea fowl behind us, and I wonder if a few of them are already crossed in behind us. But let's give it some time, especially with these youngsters, because often if they start moving, they'll often find these little opportunities to try and hunt each other. That's just their way of playing. Michael, they do interact quite a bit with the Ross males, especially the young male I've seen. And the thing is, what's quite nice, or what I often see, is that often the Ross males will tolerate him quite a bit. So even when there's food, I've seen him feeding right next to the Ross male, where the Ross male didn't allow any of the others to feed next to him. But also, the other night we saw them walking, this was like 2 weeks ago, and the young male just rubbed up against him, and he tolerated him so much. And then when that other sub-adult male, the one that's 3 years, when he came closer, then of course there was no tolerance at all. But I think because the Ross male knows that, or one of them is possibly the father of these two white youngsters, so they are more tolerant of them. There's the little sister trying to take down, I won't say the brother, but probably half brother. I heard there's quite a few of the viewers that say the white female is their favorite. I would say she has such an interesting personality. You'll see, even though she looks small and delicate, she does not back off by any means. Like whenever there's a carcass as well, she would fight vigorously to try and get a bit of meat. And I think that's why she's doing so well. You'll see she's actually bigger than her sister, which is of a tawny color, so that sandy color. And that just shows that often especially with young lions, often with wild dogs, you'll find that, and even with cheetah, that the mothers would allow the youngsters to eat first and then they would eat. But lions, it's every lion for themselves. And so this youngster knows that, and because of that, she's willing to fight for whatever she needs to. How's that for a... Oh. I think this young male is getting bullied. But you see how he was moving? How beautiful was that reflection in the water of both of them as they're moving along? Holly 11 from Joburg, that's a very good question. How many liters or how much water? To be completely honest with you, I'm not too sure how many they would drink in one session. I think it also depends on the size and of course how thirsty they would be. But I'd like to hear if any of the viewers know more or less roughly how many, I wouldn't say liters, maybe half a liter of water they drink. Because I think as soon as they drink, they'll probably drink like a liter, maybe a liter and a half. But I'd like to hear from some of our viewers if anyone has a bit of an idea. To be honest, I don't think I've ever thought about that. There's a bird just landed and right of us. It's called the grey go-away bird. And that's a sound you probably would have heard now. You can see the rest of them. Marcel, do you see off to the right there? My 10 from India, good question. Like sometimes with the females, they can move prides. So I've seen it before where the female was part of a pride, but it was normally the younger ones that are more likely to move out of the pride and join up with other prides. Or might even split away from the pride and form their own pride. I know in some areas this has been documented where there's a big pride of lions and all the young females move out and they join up with a male that might be from another pride and then form their own pride. So you do find that. And of course the males, whenever they get pushed out, they'll try and form their own pride or maybe even try and join up with other males that are similar in age and eventually take over prides from there. But what I'm hoping to do, I think a few of the lions have actually laid in a grassy patch just to the back of where those ones are. And I think maybe what we can try and do is move around and see if we can get another glimpse of the rest of the pride. So there's quite a few people that commented on how much water a lion can drink. Apparently 1 gallon of water in a day. So it'd be interesting. I mean, I've seen, like from what I can estimate, on maybe a single go, I would probably say close to like 1.5 liters, 2 liters, maybe a little bit more than 2 liters, because they can sometimes drink more than once a day. But that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. See, all of them are moving to the rest of the pride. So what I think we'll do is let's go around, see if we can get another glimpse of them from that other angle. This is just such a beautiful morning. Look at this waterhole. And I need to say this morning, Marcel pulled out a ridiculous spot. We were driving and it was quite far off and he spotted this lion moving through the grass, but pretty good spot. For now, let's head across to Lauren with a kudu.
We have lots of kudus, females, just making their way. They have crossed into our property, which is great. It's rare we get to say that, crossing in. Our famous words are crossing out. There's about 6 of them, I think, slowly just making their way on to Djuma. Oh, that's a young boy. Apologies. Sorry. There's lots of females here too. But that is a young boy. You can see how the horns make that transformation from small, short spikes into the large spiral horns that Kudus have as a fully grown adult. Ah, there's a young boy there. Oh, look at those horns. He's very young. Magnificent animals. Now, just an update, there is possibly over 100 vultures just sitting off the western boundary into Arethusa, but far too far in for us to actually gauge what's going on. There's definitely a kill there. I would guess lions, and why I would say that would be because normally that number of vultures suggests a bigger prey species, as in buffalo, possibly zebra, possibly a large wildebeest. Normally when you have small prey kills from leopards, you won't see that volume of vultures. So I suspect something is, well, not very alive and currently being eaten on Arethusa. But sadly, we drove really, really slowly and had a really good look, but we just could not get any sort of idea what was going on. Just a little bit too far. So that's our update from the western side. I'm not sure we're going to get another view of these kudu. I think they've gone too far in. What do you think, Davi? I think they have. You got them, Davi. It's the most, not a very great view, but it shows you how camouflaged they are. Jasmine, you're asking what's the difference between horns and antlers? A very good question. Deers have antlers, of course. Antlers are actually sheds, and what that means is they regrow each year. So the deer, if you like, are able to lose them and then regrow them. However, horns cannot. So the horns that you see on the likes of the kudu or the impala or the Ngala are actually bone. So they're bones that come out from the skull, they're attached to the skull, and they're covered in layers of keratin. So that means that if the bone was to snap, then of course they would not regrow. Where their antlers are branched structures, they look slightly different, and they're shed annually. Apparently they have a really high water and protein content, and they're also covered in a layer of keratin, but they're slightly softer. And I've never felt antlers, but I know that they have a velvet hair-like feel to them rather than the hard keratin of the horns. So horns are permanent fixtures on top of the antelope's head, and antlers are shed. I hope that answers your question, Yasmin. Oh, hello, leopard track. We do have fresh leopard tracks. I don't know where they're going, but I'm going to follow them. And as I do that, I think James has not 1, but 2 Bateleurs for you.
Here we have got the Bateleurs, which we see almost on a daily basis. One of them having a yawn, the other one looking like he might take off. What one really wants, if one likes taking pictures of birds, is these Bateleurs taking off, their wings outstretched. So unfortunately these Bateleurs do not appear to be about to take off. They are enjoying the morning sun, as are we. We are feeling much warmed by the sun. Which is very nice. Beautiful chorus this morning. Yes, Megan, you've obviously been watching for a while. You've noticed that this is a couple of Bateleurs. In other words, a couple that is in the throes of marital bliss, shall we say, but right now that is not so blissful. They seem to have been not talking to each other. They've split apart slightly. I suspect what happened was that he didn't make the coffee of a sufficient standard for her this morning, and she's now having a sulk. Or maybe he got back late last night, and she's pretty unimpressed with his general performance. Maybe he's been getting back late many nights in a row, out having a drink with the boys. Or, even more likely, he's not happy because she's been hanging out late with the girls every night. They're a modern family, these Bateleurs. She is, of course, the one on the right. He is the one on the left. And given that he is going about his business, he's sort of cleaning himself and having a shower, doing a preen, and she is staring into the middle distance, I think he's the one that's caused offence. Also, the fact that she's sitting above him and he keeps looking up towards her indicates that he's saying, surely you can forgive me now. But I don't think she's in any mood for forgiveness. Cedric, I told you once, I've told you 100 times. When are you going to take the rubbish out on time? But, my dear, it was just that I had... You always have an excuse, Cedric. Yes, but, Elizabeth, next week I will be better. No, you won't, Cedric. You say you'll be better every week. But this week I really will be much better, Elizabeth. Cedric, I don't believe you. I think she even yawned. Matthew, I'm not sure I'm the right person to give them counselling. I've only been married for 7 weeks now. 8 weeks. Oh, no. Yes, 8 weeks. 8 or 9 weeks. I don't think I'm the right person to be giving them counselling. What I find, I'm pretty sure they'll just get over it, you know. Eventually. I've gone silent because I thought I heard some alarm calls behind me. Some impalas. Let's go back to Nicky and his lions. I'm going to just quickly go back along this road and see if I was hearing things or if the impala are just rutting.
So we're having a look at this young white female, and there's another sibling right next to. Well, I don't know if it's a sibling. I just saw the head and a bit of the tail, but it's just so interesting seeing them play the whole time, because the one was trying to grab the leaves off the top of the tree and actually jumped, try to grab it. So let's just give it some time on those two, and you'll see the rest of the pride are laying down, but these two are just having quite a bit of fun. You can see the one's just looking back, but I don't think it's going to be long before that white female's going to come running around again. I think it's 2 against 1, the 2 tawnies against the 1 white. Super White, you asked a very good question. What are some of the disease or illnesses that lions could be most exposed to? Now, lions, quite a big problem sometimes, especially in some of the areas in southern Africa, is TB, so tuberculosis within lions, and they often get that from buffaloes. Mange could be another one. Just trying to think off the top of my head on some of the other ones that I do know. Anthrax could also be quite a big problem, because anthrax, the problem with that, it can stay up to 200 years within the soil, and then as soon as it comes up again, if there's any carcass or anything, animal that probably just recently died of it and their lions eat that, then of course they can get that as well. And then I also think in terms of possibly other things, is especially after hunting, if they do injure themselves and that becomes septic, they do form this. You'll see sometimes with lions, especially if they hunt wildebeest or buffalo, something with a horn, or even kudu, and that horn goes into the skin and it gets a secondary infection, they could die possibly of that. But more likely, I would say those are some of the diseases. There are probably more, but those are the ones that I can just think of on the top of my head. See, all these ones are laying down, while those other ones are in the back playing. And you might even find these other ones that have just gone to lay down, you can just hear them breathing quite heavily, is that they'll eventually just settle down here for the day. So we'll spend some more time with them, just see what these youngsters might be up to. Oh, here we go, there's another takedown.
The sun's just catching my eye.
Oh, no worries. Marcel's just trying to fight his way to try and see them, but also, because of the sun, is almost coming directly towards us. This one's gone down, but the other one is now curious. I wonder if you can still see the other one. Da, you asked a very good question. With the white lions, I'm not too sure, like in regards to how it will affect them. I do know they are leucistic, so they don't have that very strong tawny pigment, so I do think that the sun would affect them in some other way, but not as much as albinism. However, with lions, their general behavior is normally early in the morning and late afternoon. That's when they move, when the sun is not at its warmest. Look at how she's stalking these other two. Even the way she's sitting down, look at how she's trying to keep her ears down as well. But so their behavior is normally to move into quite a nice shady patch for the heat of the day, so she'll move into a bit of cover. However, I think if she had to be exposed to the direct sunlight, especially in the heat of the day, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Just my knowledge, especially with white lions, also in the fact white lions in this area, is I don't know if there's too much research been done in regards to that. But if anyone has a better idea or better understanding, I'd love to hear from them. It's just according to my knowledge, I do know that the behavior counts a lot for them in the way that they do move into the shade, and they'll find quite sufficient amount of shade before they settle down for the day. All you can see now is just the tails above, now and then flicking above the grass. They might have gone down to the water, but you can see these other ones are quite lazy, and I don't think they're going to be heading anywhere pretty soon. So what I think for us, from here on, we'll give it a bit more time with them, see if those youngsters come back out again. But I think from here on, we'll probably start heading on and see if we can follow and see if there's any signs of leopard in the area. Maybe even see if we can find some elephants, possibly buffalo, some giraffe. You just never know. I mean, this is also the time of the year when cheetah and wild dogs move to the open areas, so it might even be worth it for us to go and scan a few open areas and just see if there's anything around. So while we're going to do that, let's head across to Lauren, hear if she has an update, but I think for now, we'll probably leave these lines and then carry on with our drive. Maybe this afternoon we can come back and see if they're still in the same spot.
we have just spotted one of my favourites, a golden orb web spider. She's actually on the other side of the web. This is quite nice. You can see the web in front of her and her lower abdomen, the underside of her abdomen, which you don't get to see too often. This is like her tummy, if you like. And there's a hole at the rear end where all the glands are kept, the spinnerets. But I don't think we'll be able to see it from this angle. Is she eating, Darby? Can we get a little bit closer to her? Or is she cleaning? Oh, she's eating! She has something wrapped up. So you see just down the right-hand side there, she's got lots of items, shall we say. Lots of carcasses wrapped in silk and hanging. Oh, we've got a dewdrop spider there as well. Just on the right-hand side is a dewdrop spider because it shimmers silver and looks like a little dewdrop. But all these parcels that the dewdrop spider is actually after is food. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and breakfast tomorrow. But she's currently eating. So using both her chelicerae and mandibles, she's feasting on whatever delicacy she has here. She's holding it tight with the third pair of legs, and she's eating upside down. Fascinating. Butterfly, I know what you mean. For a golden orb web spider, it is quite messy. It's quite complex, actually. Not very golden either, just a tad golden. But yes, Butterfly, I completely agree with you. It is very messy. I wonder if there's multiple webs there from multiple individuals. I also drove into a web earlier, which wasn't too pleasant. But she's slowly feeding. Whatever she's feeding on, I can't tell. It's wrapped up in a silk cocoon. Will be dead. But she's definitely having breakfast. See how slowly and delicate she's piercing it. And spinning it round with the third set of legs. It's really fascinating to watch these animals at work. I'm going to be sad when they disappear, and they will. Once we go a little bit further into winter, they will completely disappear. There's no rush. There's no rush to eat this because it's not alive. It's probably been stuck in the web quite some time. She's wrapped it in silk. It probably was alive when she wrapped it in silk, I'm afraid, and then it stayed in the web, like a pantry. You can see that little dewdrop spider is still there, risking its life next to this huge female, who could potentially eat it. It actually is quite golden, now that you can see the sun bouncing off it. It's quite yellow in parts. But completely agree with you, Butterfly. Very messy. Very intricate. It's making me hungry watching her eat breakfast. Lisa, you can't believe how big it is. I know. It's huge. As much as I love them, I'm always scared I'm going to drive into one of these webs and have the female land on my face. I think that would be utterly terrifying. It's very large, including the sort of abdomen, the head, the thorax, and the legs. I'm sure this female would be the same size as my hand if she stretched out. This is a large arachnid. There's female leopard tracks everywhere. We've been spinning around in circles. That's just an update on that. We found some more on the southern boundary that have actually crossed into Djuma, same as the Kudu. And I can't think who it would be. My only guess would be Sibui. They're single tracks, so. And I really don't know. We lose them a little bit around Treehouse, so I think we are going to bumble forward just in case there is a mobile leopard on patrol in the area. And then we are making our way to Cheetah. That was always the plan, everyone. We've just had many a detour this morning because there's just tracks everywhere. Lots of leopards have moved in this area during the night last night. Of course, they are primarily nocturnal, but there's been a lot of movement. So I think it's worth just staying mobile at this point and seeing if we can catch up with anybody. But we are heading into Cheetah, I promise. We're almost there. We're on the southern boundary, and very shortly we will be popping across into Cheetah. Okay, as I furiously search the ground to see if we can pick up on more tracks, we are going to send you back across to James to see what he's up to.
I am driving towards the Hyena den now. And I'm hoping that there's going to be some action here, as opposed to just a fat beach ball-esque hyena matriarch lying there doing nothing. I'm hoping the babies will be out. They will be playing in the sunlight. Their friends will have come around to play with them, and we shall all have an enjoyable dawn sighting. Well, I fear me those wishes are not going to be granted, because we have got two fat beach ball-esque hyenas sitting at the den. And no babies just yet. Maybe they shall come out. Ooh. Sorry about that, chaps. Good morning. Can you bring the babies out now? Yes? No. So we have the matriarch and a younger one. Possibly Swazi, not sure. We'll give them a couple of minutes, I think, before we decide to move on. Yes, Jeweled, Ribbon is always sleeping. That is absolutely correct. Except when she is patrolling at night. And I think she heads out and does quite a lot of foraging in the evenings. Because the size of her belly most mornings is impressive. I also think that she needs to perhaps engage the services of a gardening club or gardening service. For here we see in front of us a lot of gardening refuse, which I think should be cleaned away so that we can have a better view, unobscured, of the den, especially when the babies deign to come out once a fortnight. Oh, the day is taking on a quietness now. Soon we shall hear the of the chin spot batisse. Oh, this is very nice. We'll sit here for another 15 minutes or so. Ooh, 10 minutes or so. Let's go now to the west, to Taylor, who has got herself 3 male exciting animals.
Mute yourself, please. Hello, everybody. Welcome back again to Karongwe Game Reserve. We're going to have to start moving in a little minute, and a short second. We have finally found the male cheetah that roam around here with very, very full bellies, thanks to a bunch of people this morning. In fact, everybody's been working hard, and the animals have been working even harder because they're traveling crazy distances over a short period of time. But it's good to see them with beach ball bellies, and I think that they've actually just hunted. They just drank a bit of water. We did see some kudu running out of the area that they were in, so maybe we don't actually know what they caught, but they've definitely just eaten, so this is very exciting. Now I'm going to drive up ahead. This is a very illegal maneuver. No? What's happened? Is everything breaking in my car? That's a great sound. The cars are not supposed to make that noise. I don't know why it did that. My car wasn't on. It was off. So we're just going to drive up a little bit. I'm hoping that as we climb this crest, our signal should improve. I do apologize. I am taking a risky maneuver, but I think it's worth it when we've got the cheetah. Even with those full bellies, they're still able to move quite quickly, which is very impressive. But they're on a patrol. They're heading to where their normal areas. They're actually on their way towards in the direction of Chippenberry Dam, where we always see the hummercorp that rides the hippo. So that's where we're headed. And they've moved right out of the south. We're kind of now in the middle of the Karongwe Game Reserve. We'll just quickly watch them here before they disappear around the corner, and then we'll have another look at them. We'll have to just keep playing for as long as the signal allows us, this shuffling game. Now this road sort of meanders. It's not as straight as the one that we were on. Ooh, can you please repeat that question? If you're wondering who Kirsten is, she's directing the show, so she's feeding me all the questions that you're asking. I need to go forward again. Right, let's carry on. Sorry, I didn't hear the end part of the question. I know it was about my thoughts on something that these male cheetah have done, so we shall get to it in a minute. Not even joking, literally every single time, Kirsten, you ask me that question, the last part just cuts out completely. Look at them scent marking, so we'll get to it in a minute. This is really awesome. So even though they've got full bellies and they've had something to eat, they're still making sure that they reaffirm their territories, and if there are any other male cheetah in this area, which they are not, but they know that they sorry, I'm just getting that question in properly, that they are the ones that are dominant around here. So they'll typically defecate up high on termite mounds and logs and rocks and all sorts of things, and then they'll spray their urine up against the tree. Now, just jumping back to James Richards' question about why I thought that they were so aggressive towards the females. This is, I think, quite normal behavior for male cheetah. They're not necessarily wanting to hurt the cubs. There's very few cases of male cheetah performing infanticide. So what that means is where male animals of a species will kill cubs, young animals. And normally this is so that they, especially if it happens when they haven't mated with that particular female and it's not their offspring. So there's no need for them to help raise somebody else's genetics. It's their genetics that they want to help be successful and to pass on, to obviously, in this case, other cheetah. But cheetah don't do that, not like lions and leopards are notorious for doing. Even zebra stallions have been recorded doing it. So these cats don't typically do that, and they weren't actually aggressive towards the cubs at all. I'm going to just park off to the side here, and then we can hopefully watch them and I can discuss this further. There we go. That should be quite nice. So basically what happened, let me just do the whole story. We said that they were moving in the area of the female. We didn't have a view of the female that day. We tried, and we lost the boys too. And then we went round, we spoke to one of the researchers, and we were actually heading home. And he called us back and he said he can hear some vocalizations. This was well after the show had ended. It was just before 10 o'clock. So we went back, and then we decided, right, we need to head in. These are distress calls. We want to see what's happening. So we sort of meandered through the bush a little bit, and then we sat quietly and watched from a distance, where we saw one of the cubs just sitting out into the open. We couldn't see where all the adult cheetah were, but the three males and the female were off to the side together. I suspect that female had told the cubs to stay and hide, and one just didn't listen. And as it came out, the boys charged in the direction of the cubs. The cub got a fright and ran a short distance, and then just sat onto its bottom, and then just looked at the males. Stopped. They put their heads down towards it. They snarled from what I could see. They smelt it, and this little cub was distressing and panicking, as you can imagine. So then the female came charging in, and then there was a big argument, and they attacked her, and again, it wasn't any biting. It was just sort of a slap, if you will. I think let's keep trying to follow them again. If our signal breaks up, I apologize. I'll send you off to someone else and reposition, but let's give it a bash. I think it's been okay this morning in this spot. So that happened, and that happened twice, where the female got into altercations with the males. But again, it was just lots of slapping like this. Then the cubs stayed on the side, which I'm sure you saw from the video that Eco Training posted. And they just sat there and they yelped and yelped and yelped. And then we caught on camera once where they actually were fighting with her. And you could see that it was just a lot of noise. There was quite a bit of dust. And I haven't seen her properly yet. I've seen her once with the two cubs, so I know that they're alive. They were just in an area we couldn't get to, so we're kind of just giving her space. And she's actually moved up very far north too, so everyone's working on trying to find her. But at least we've got the boys. But their goal is not to go out and kill their offspring. Why would they want to kill their cubs? They're the only male cheetah on this reserve. She's the only female. They are the father, well, the three of them are the fathers of those cubs. So, all very interesting. The first time I've ever seen an interaction like that with such young cubs. And then that was the end of it. She's obviously quite shaken up about the whole experience, and the boys are carrying on like nothing has even happened. So we shall see. Be interesting. But like I said, it's not typical that male cheetah kill cubs like lion and leopard. So I know you were all panicked, and it was very scary. It was. My heart was racing through that whole experience. I was going... and it's a tough decision for guys. What do? You sit there witnessing. No one ever wants to interfere, but in your heart you're going, I just want to run in there and stop it, but you can't. You just have to sit and observe and make sure you give the animals distance and that you're not affecting the sighting, and that's exactly what we did that day. Thankfully, we've got these great cameras with phenomenal zoom capabilities that allows us to sit at a distance and watch. So yeah, it was pretty spectacular. I think really, really interesting and very lucky to see. So yeah, and then the boys grew bored of the female and the cubs and obviously moved off. And I think she moved in the complete opposite direction as well. Oh, they're gorgeous though, these three. And I'm so happy that they've got something to eat as well. Although I think these ones are successful hunters. From what I've heard that happens on the reserve, they're known for taking down young kudu. That seems to be their favorite food, and I suppose with three big cheetah, they need something substantial to eat. Impala would be a good meal, but I think a young kudu is quite nice. Now, you're probably all laughing at the size of their stomachs. Cheetah, out of all the cat species, are the most hilarious with the way that they just completely indulge in their food and their bellies really expand. It's quite dramatic. It looks like, and I always say this, it looks like those if animals were fat videos, cheetah. It's exactly it. They are just decided to take a rest now. They're exhausted from all the walking that they've done. I don't blame them. I'd probably be resting more than walking, but they must have somewhere that they need to be. Yeah, you can see them panting quite heavily. But remember, all that food is now pushing up against, or their stomach has expanded and it's pushing up against their diaphragm. So lots of short breaths. We see it with lions as well, but still alert. That takes a great skill of multitasking, don't you think? Goodness, if I know how I feel after I've eaten a ridiculous amount of food, the last thing I'm able to do is watch out and, make sure no one's coming for me. That might be the best way to kidnap me. No, please don't come and kidnap me. I'm just joking. I probably shouldn't have said that, but anyways. Exhausted. Oh, and I bet that the sand is nice and cool because it's covered in the dew. So they're having a great time. Right. James is also bumbling about in the Sabi Sand, and I think that James is sitting with Hyena. It was on his way to Hyena.
I have not moved. The hyenas have not moved. Now, Michael Fleetwood mentioning that the youngster we're looking at there, if it is Swazi, it's an interesting case because Ribbon is extremely tolerant of him and is kind of moving around the den, but I don't know if we've got a confirmed identification on him yet. Could you step out into the open, please? I'll tell you what, let's just reverse a little bit. There's a little gap through another bush. We're not going to spend long here now because, well, these two hyenas have shown absolutely no enthusiasm for doing anything other than what they're doing right now, which is nothing. Safari lover, I'm not really sure actually why they wouldn't sleep outside. I guess it's just safer for them inside. Is that right, Bika? It's just safer for them inside, and they'll come out when they play. And I mean, not very long from now, they won't go into the den a huge amount. Ooh, it was a nice little sort of stretchy, squealy noise. They are very sweet, aren't they, when they're about that age? I don't think one could ever look at Ribbon and say she looks sweet. Yeah, I mean, it looks sweet. Maybe it does. Kirsten says it looks like she's smiling. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate her, and for a magnificent animal. Sweet, I'm just not sure is what I'd describe her as, maybe when she's interacting with her babies. An impala has stepped closer and is now making roaring noises. Looks so satisfied and comfy, doesn't she? Or he? I knew this would happen. Everyone is now saying that Ribbon looks sweet. All right, everyone. I'm going to agree with you. Ribbon looks sweet. What I really like about the way Ribbon looks is that ear is so distinctive you can spot it a mile off, so she's easy to identify. It's quite interesting as this little breeze blows. What's quite cool is that the leaves are slowly starting to fall off the trees, and you can just hear one or two going tick, 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 as it falls through its colleagues onto the ground. Let's go back to the cheetahs, which are lying about with Taylor.
We're still here sitting with the boys, and they have barely moved a muscle other than the fact that they are now utilizing their tongues to clean their paws and groom the rest of their bodies. So this is why I also think that they recently made a kill, as that's quite typical. After the cat species have feasted on whatever they may have caught, they then need to clean themselves up and cleaning of the paws like they are, wiping their faces, suggests that they maybe ate something. They would have given themselves, I think, a little bit of a clean-up once they've finished their meal, but now they're just sort of making sure that every hair is in its place. But rolling around, and one standing up, I don't think it's going to be too long before they're on the move again. A little bit of grooming just to reassure that bond within this coalition. Oh yes, that's very sweet. I still haven't got the ID kits to you. I have my apologies of between who is Zulu and who is Natal. Now I know a few of you thought that I was joking when I gave those names. I'm not, I promise. That's just where these boys have come from, and I think that's quite a nice name. Janine, yes, it's unbelievable to see cheetah once again. I mean, this dwindling species and not having access to too many areas where they are sort of prolific. Obviously, when WildEarth had the opportunities to spend time in East Africa, in Kenya, and a little bit of time in Tanzania, there were plenty opportunities as those places are known for their cheetah. Well, now that we are able to drive around on Karongwe Game Reserve with eco-training, definitely going to have cheetah sightings. Although they evaded us for a couple of days, they were quite sneaky, or a few drives. Man, were Alex and I sweating that we couldn't find them, and they were just 2 steps ahead of us all the time. And this is such an enormous reserve, and there's over 400 kilometers of road network. So in between the roads, there's so much vegetation and space that it could take them 20 or 30 minutes, to walk from one end of a block, we would say, where the sort of area between the roads. So yeah, it's difficult. Now, Beck, I think it was, who is sitting in final control. You've inquired about these cheetahs' hunting capabilities, even though that they have just, I suppose, eaten almost their entire weight. Not quite their entire weight, I'm obviously just teasing, but a fair amount of flesh. Right now, I think if something actually just tripped over and fell on the road, they might go for it. I don't think that they're going to reach their top speeds with those big bellies, and that's what cheetah rely on. With lions and leopards, they might be full, but they are so powerful, got really well adapted shoulders, that they can force prey to the ground with some kind of wrestling maneuver. It's a little bit different for cheetah. So I don't know if they'd be particularly interested in hunting right now. They seem to be quite satisfied. But maybe if an unfortunate scrub hare dashed onto the road, they might have enough energy to just burst into a sprint and grab it. But I don't think that that's what they're after right now. But lions and leopards, again, I've seen with lions feeding on things and getting up and catching something else. So it's not impossible. And like I said yesterday, we've seen stranger things happen in nature. So we never say never. But I don't know, I don't have much experience with these boys. I'm still learning about their personalities and their behaviors, just as all of you are. So it's quite nice to grow with this coalition of cheetah. So after today, I should have really nice shots. Just need to try and edit them. I promise that I will do today, and we'll get exactly who's Zulu and Natal. Faith will be able to help me do this. I'm so sorry, Kirst. You keep breaking up on my side and the calls. Kirsten's directing, so I'm not getting the questions 100%. So she will just send that through to me in a minute. So yeah, so Faith is a camp coordinator at Eco Training, and she actually used to work at one of the research places, so she knows these guys very, very well. Yeah, Talia. Yes, cheetah unfortunately probably have the most of the natural predators. We'll watch them as they just walk down the road. So lions, leopards, hyenas are the obvious ones. They are notorious for stealing cheetahs' kills. It's quite easy to sort of chase them off. But I always talk about the one sighting that I had where vultures, which is a rather large bird that typically scavenges, so it eats the scraps of all the animals. They're like the cleanup crew in the bush. and I've seen a big group of them chase one male cheetah off an impala kill before, so that happens. So yes, they do have lots of natural predators, and then even humans, even us as people, we are huge threats to cheetah. Unfortunately, Talia, some people want to have these beautiful wild animals as pets. So cheetah are one of the most common cats to have, or in the pet trade, the illegal pet trade, to try and keep them as pets. So you can, I would say, domesticate a cheetah probably better than you could domesticate a lion, but we don't condone this kind of behavior. Let's let them live out in the wild and let them be. We'll follow them a little bit longer, but I do want to get an update on Zeus, the big male lion. He was also roaming around here. Off you go to Lauren to see what she's up to.
We have arrived at Cheetah Dam. It's very beautiful and very peaceful. Slightly blinded by the sun, reflecting off the water, however, it's beautiful. We've got some geese up ahead having a drink. At least I think that's what they're... No, they're having a little bath. Egyptian geese. It's cleaning time. It's ducking its entire body under in order to wash its body. All the dirt, the dust, insects, parasites, anything, they're having a clean. Makes a change from them being noisy. Normally when you come to Cheetah, all you can hear is the Egyptian geese. Have you ever gone swimming in the sea? The North Sea is a great example. And it's so cold, but you want to swim, you want to be in there. It's summer. And you've just got to dunk your head under as quickly as possible and get it over with. Get that initial brain freeze. That's what it looks like these ducks are doing. These geese, sorry. Just having a little scan to see if there's anything else going on around the dam that I'm missing. It's very tricky to see with the sun like this. Tammy, you're asking about the bird's nest. Now, I'm not sure what ones you means, but I think it's these ones. And if it is, then this is from the red-billed buffalo weavers. Normally, they're also being very vocal in the morning. I've got my binos out and I don't see any. But they're a type of weaver. They're a species of weaver. And they're very vocal and they create these very large, messy nests, Tammy. They're not very neat, they're not very tidy, especially in comparison to your masked weavers or your village weavers. They produce these gorgeous little bobble balls. This is very, very messy. And they just keep growing and growing and growing. And it's the red-billed buffalo weavers. I'll try and see if I can find you a picture on my bird app. Yes, I've got one here, Darby. I hope you can see. The sun is rather bright. This is a red-billed buffalo weaver here. So you can see, believe it or not, they've got a red bill. They're black with white patches. And they're very, very different from the likes of the southern masked weavers, the weavers that produce the balls that are brightly coloured. So there's quite a difference between male and female. You can see this is a male, the black one. The females are more brown in colour and a lot paler. And those birds are the ones behind creating those nests. Now, I don't see anything else going on around the dam, I'm afraid. We've done a complete tour of Cheetah. And no luck with Kuchava. I think probably that kill is finished and they've moved on to greener pastures. So I'm also going to move on and head back into Djuma. And as I do that, we're going to send you back across to Nikki, who's driving in the riverbed.
So we were exploring a bit of the river to see if there's any signs of possibly leopard, and we stumbled across this whole family of Vervet monkeys. Have a look at this one on the left, the way they're laying down while this other one is grooming. Absolutely one of my favorites to watch. Them and the baboons.
Fight over food, it's funny.
Yeah. Just look at that one off to the right. How they're laying down, and that other one is grooming. You'll see, like, picking up the hair, looking out for the ticks. Now, I feel often after the whole lockdown, our hair is so long, we might have to do the same. Probably just have to go there and lie down so they can pick. Make sure we don't have any ticks or anything on us. There's a little one that's actually moving right next to us. Just see, would you be able to get that one? So just have a look. It's a lot smaller one in comparison to the others. I know it's hard to try and judge the size of it, but if you look at that. Little itch on the knee there. So if we can focus on these ones again in the riverbed, because I just saw that one like moving itself a little bit again to try and get into that sun. Let's have a look. I can just imagine after So second chance, a really good question. They don't really associate with one another. I've often seen, like whenever baboons move into an area, you find that the vervet monkeys would move away. And I do feel like with baboons as well, like if they do manage to grab hold of a vervet monkey, they'll probably, I don't know, maybe kill it and eat it. It's as harsh as it sounds, but I've noticed that whenever baboons move into an area, they do move out. And I have seen it before where, I think it was a few years ago, where a baboon would actually kill a vervet monkey, so they do avoid each other, and you don't really find them together. Look at that other one, how he's picking the tail, holding the tail up and picking the ticks off of it. What we'll try and do, just bear with me, we're just going to move slightly forward. I'm not going to move too forward and disturb them. I'm just going to go maybe a couple of meters and then we'll quickly stop and have another look. I think this should be fine, because if I do go forward, we might just disturb them. I'll lean out of the way so you can shoot over the head. Now it's time for the hair. Yeah, exactly. Probably saying, what are these things, because you're not listening. So there would be a dominant male in the troop. I noticed early on it looked like there were possibly two dominant males, but the one would probably show less dominance. But normally it is with a whole troop like that, there will be a dominant male leading the whole group of them together. Look at So for now, we're going to carry on, but let's head across to James with some dwarf mongoose.
Yes, we have got a dwarf mongoose, an actual moving mammal, which is something of a relief. And it is gorgeously framed by the blue winter sky and the height of this termite mound. It is looking out over to the east, considering where it will go and forage for breakfast a little bit later. Perhaps it will find some eggs. Perhaps a scorpion. If it's very lucky, a fat beetle grub. But its friends are already up. And BK, if you look in the sun, just beyond the shadow of this marula tree, you will see its friends already foraging, young and eager as they are. And now they are gone. They are very careful. Let's just wait a second. Did you see them there, BK? Those ones were very eager. Anyway, let's go back to our one on the mound. What I was trying to illustrate there is that this mongusta is a straggler. The rest are already out foraging. It might actually be a nurse or babysitter. And so he'll be looking, she most likely will be looking after some very young ones inside the mound. Hello, Anushka. Anushka, a lot of mongoose will demonstrate what's known as thalatosis. I can't believe I remembered that name or the word. But I think the Taylor sighting, which keeps doing the rounds on social media, I mean, millions of people have viewed it now, where a mongoose was playing dead next to a hornbill, which isn't a predator at all. It was just, I don't know why it was doing it. And if you haven't seen it, I actually don't know where you can find it. If you Google dead mongoose video or mongoose playing dead, it'll definitely come up. Millions of people have watched it now, and it happened here, where a mongoose like this was running around behind, it was a young mongoose running around behind a termite, running around behind a hornbill, and every time the hornbill turned to look at it, the mongoose jumped over onto its back and played dead. It's absolutely hilarious. I've never seen them do that. I'm sure they do it in the presence of predators, but I've never seen them do it myself. No, he's just staring, looking out over this gorgeous, gorgeous scene in front of him. Isn't that nice? Alrighty, let's go back to Nicky. I didn't hear what he had, I'm afraid.
So as we just left those Vervet monkeys, we saw the movement up in the tree, and it's a giant eagle owl, or the other name is a rose eagle owl. Now how we know that is of course the size, but look at when it closes its eyes. You'll know there's a bit of pink on the eyelids. And also that black marking that runs along the face. You see there's a little patch of white on the shoulder. But it is a big owl. Now the reason why it's called the giant eagle owl is because the size of it is almost like that of an eagle, hence the name. Just wait for it to turn around again. But a very distinguishing characteristic is when they close their eyes, you can see that pink. Now often it's quite hard. Oh, it might look like it spotted something. See how it's leaning forward. And often if there's any small rodent, maybe lizard, even a vervet monkey, they'll definitely try and use the opportunity, but it is in the daytime and they normally hunt at night. So I wonder if it's just maybe just checking to see if there's anything, but making sure that you can see us now, no longer focusing there. Kylie, I do agree. I also enjoy their huge eyes, and I wonder with this one, just judging by the size of the owl, if it might be a female or male, because the females are bigger. Look at that. Look at the size of those talons. Oh, this one is now definitely showing off. But so the females are slightly bigger than the males. They reckon up to 30% bigger than that of the male. So Dylan, you asked a very good question. How would they, or what's the call they make? So he'll have a very low, like, so if you walk in the early mornings and late afternoons, especially near the rivers, because they do prefer these big trees near the river, and often you just hear this very low, almost like a hoot sound, like and if you hear that, you know, okay, it might be in the area. Now, be interesting. I mean, this one is all by itself. There might be, often when you do find them, there could be others around that might sit nearby, but I don't think we can see another one here. There's another bird calling now. I don't know if everyone can hear. It's like, it's a black-headed oriole. So it's a beautiful yellowish bird with a black head that's sitting in a fig tree next to us. Pink, Eddie, you asked a very good question in regards to the predators of these eagle owls. They could fall prey, especially to bigger eagles than them, but you'll see the area that they have chosen to sit at is quite dense, and there's a lot of cover above it, so it's going to be very hard for something to get to it. Possibly other things that could get to it is something like a African rock python, most likely be able to get to it. I think any of the other predators like leopard and that, unless they surprise them, most likely the owls will just fly away. But I would say the predator-wise would probably be birds of prey their size and bigger that could potentially go for them, as well as rock pythons. And then what's interesting though about them is that they can also go for other owls. It's been recorded before. I remember at I think it might have been down in northern Natal, in Mkuzi, where one of them took a Pels fishing owl, which is also a pretty big owl. Probably, if you had to compare the height, it would fit in underneath the chin of this. So from the branch all the way to under the chin, in comparison to this owl. So, and those powerful talons just tells you that they'll be able to take quite a big prey, or anything their size and probably smaller. Even, as we said, it recorded young vervet monkeys as well. Yes, how's that spot of sunlight like on the eyes? Imagine if it turns now towards us and closes our eyes. How beautiful that would be for a picture. Just wait and see. Fin 11. With this owl, probably would be sleeping in the daytime. But you'll know, like, they're pretty well aware of what's going on around them. So he'll sleep for a little bit of time and then open his eyes, like scan around and then sleep again. But mainly at night is when they hunt. So I'm sure as soon as we move away, it'll probably take another couple of minutes or so, and then he'll fall asleep. How's that? Look at that. Even think he might be falling asleep right now. It might just be because of that bright sunlight on his eyes. I think if we give it time, you can see those eyes are very, very heavy at the moment. That's why I'm trying to be quiet. Imagine if we sit here and we just see both the eyes like shutting, just clocking off for the day. Albert, really good question. I'm not too sure where this owl's hole would be, but at the moment, it's just enjoying that. Oh, there's those eyes closed. Oh, there we go. Probably sleeping. Oh no, it's awake again. So I would say it will probably be somewhere around the river here. I'm not too sure where it is exactly, but it wouldn't be on that tree. It might be that this owl was hunting during the evening, and then as the sun came up, it just decided to rest up on this branch. It may be later on this evening. It might start heading back. Now, unless they're nesting, you don't always find them in a cavity of a tree or in a hole, but you might find them on the branches. Like this. It was a moonlight that moved in the grass behind the owl, and that's why I just quickly turned around. It just shows you that even though it's so tight, it has to be aware of what's going on around it. Most of us, if you get able to use that foot, just look at this other tap on the branch. Here we go.
Sorry about that. I think Ngala's been remarkably stable today, so not too desperate that we've had to come suddenly across to us. What is slightly desperate is the number of animals that I've seen today. Very few. A couple of impalas. And one sleeping hyena. Ground scraper thrush. Greater blue-eared glossy starling. Doesn't sound so bad when you make a list like that. But there have been a lot of areas that I've driven on this reserve that seem to have been completely denuded of animal life. And we have had some nice small creatures on drive, and we'll head now towards the dam in front of camp and have a look at the little grebes and see what's potting with them today. Jane, you want to know if fathers matter in wildlife? That is a very long and involved topic. Essentially, but for a few species, yes, they matter very much, because only very few species are able to breed using something known as parthenogenesis, where the female can basically make babies on her own without the help of male spermatozoa. You can look that up. It's quite interesting. A couple of wasp species and various others. So, at the very least, throughout the wildlife or throughout the wild, fathers are, in the animal kingdom, fathers are useful at the very least as the donators of sperm. So there's the one aspect of it. Do they matter in terms of raising babies? Well, that's a subject of great debate. And in a lot of those debates, the answer is an unequivocal no, not at all. They play virtually no role whatsoever. But sometimes the role is a lot more subtle. A lion's role in raising youngsters, a leopard's role in raising his youngsters is relatively subtle. His job is to basically make sure that his territory is not invaded by marauding males unrelated to his offspring, because if they were to invade his territory, they would kill his babies. And so he does play an indirect parenting role that is very important, without which, it would be impossible for his babies to survive. Here we have another example of males that have a fairly, I don't know what we'd call it. I suppose the impala ram falls much into the sperm donor category of father, but at the same time, if he did not behave the way he does, if he did not go through this rutting process, the females would never ovulate and they would never produce youngsters. And so, I suppose, strictly speaking, he plays an indirect fathering role, but not so much in terms of raising his youngsters. But without the males, it would be impossible, and without their antics, it would be impossible for these females to make their babies. So what you need to consider, basically, is that males and females have evolved together, and the strategies that various species have adopted are beneficial to that species. Now that sounds very much like I'm promoting a species-centric idea of evolution, which I'm not. Of course, evolution acts on the individual, it doesn't act on the species. But for this particular species, the male and female have to behave in the way that they do in order for things to work out the way that they do. And so they've evolved together. And so the male, the father, is very important, although he doesn't play a role in raising his youngsters. However, there is one massive group of animals in which fathers play a huge role, and that, of course, is the birds. Because in the birds, Dad plays a massive parenting role in many, many species. He incubates the eggs, he goes to fetch food, he feeds them, he protects them. So in the birds, you'll find that a huge number of fathers are crucial during the actual raising process. So, outwardly it looks like males play very little role at all in fathering, in the mammals especially, but most of them do play an indirect role, because if they didn't play some kind of useful indirect role, you'd find that they would have probably disappeared, maybe, and maybe parthenogenesis would have become a thing with mammals, and maybe it will eventually one day. Lovely topic, that. Let's go to Taylor. She's off behind my right shoulder, about 110 kilometers away behind my right shoulder.
Look at what we've managed to find you. I don't know how many days, weeks it's taken for us to put a wildebeest on camera, but we've got the most relaxed herd here at Karongwe Game Reserve. That looks like one of the females just standing there, observing. And there's quite a few young ones, which I'm hoping should pop up shortly. We shall have a look in a moment. But it's been quite nice today to see some plains game. Everywhere we've been driving has been fairly quiet. So that's what happens on these reserves, is that these animals... Would you like me to roll forward? I can do a little... Let's see if we can roll forward. But basically what happens on these smaller reserves... Oh, careful, I'm rolling. Go to that will is they do migrations, and they basically rotate very well. We had a beautiful big bull this morning, but he was all on his lonesome. He would quite like in charge of a herd like this. Rest can't cross the dirt, and these to see that I've got a spring in one. Going to get problem lossing controlling. Oh my goodness, I might have out from Flintstone there with bead. I wonder if that would work. Gone out the car and pushed with one foot. Oh, never mind. A wildebeest have disappeared And we're about to lock.
Sorry, who were you calling for? Sorry, just making...
I'm just calling you. Did you follow these male leopard tracks on Impala Road?
Positive, I did. There's male leopard tracks going south, and then there's female tracks up in the opposite direction going north. Sorry, everyone, I'm just talking with James. But we couldn't find anything. There's lots of vultures on Arathusa, just off Triple M, a little bit further south, but that's all we came across. Sorry, I was on the radio to James. He must be in the western side. I'm in the northern side now, and we're just going to check Buffelshoek Dam. Why? Because lots of elephants were called in here, and I can see the signs of elephants. I can see the tracks, and I can see the big, huge piles of dung, but I can't see the elephants. So I'm hoping that they've maybe, possibly made it to Buffelshoek Dam. So I'm almost there. Fingers crossed. As I do that, I think Nikki's got a very small little insect for you all.
What are you back? So we went to this open area to see if there's any signs of possibly wild dogs or even cheetah, because we've moved out of the riverbed and we found the southern ground hornbill, and there was 3 of them. I just want to see where this one moves off. We might just lose a view. What I'm going to do, just bear with me, let me go slightly back. How is that, Marshall? Okay, earlier on, it looked like one of these hornbills caught a lizard, and it was flicking up the lizard and then like biting it a few times before it eventually swallowed it. So let's just keep a good look. As you can see how it's moving, constantly looking down. It's such a good bird to watch, and I know everyone, I've heard that quite a few people love the ground hornbills. I do as well, and especially watching them, you'll sometimes see if there's youngsters around. I couldn't see with the other 2 that were there. Like, if they do catch something, they immediately take it to the youngster and give it to them to eat. You can see this one now and then looks down, looks up, and I wonder if there might be anything around. Oh, if it carries on the way that it does now, we might just lose it. Yeah, I think, let's just see how long we can see them going for. But it does sound like there might also be alarm calls not too far away from us. Heggy, they do look like they might look like dinosaurs, especially if you would compare them. Would you say Velociraptor, or what would you say? Agreed. They do have a bit of an appearance and the way that they move. But I think for now you can see we're quite an open area from here. So before we carry on, what I would like to do is, if I can see where I put my map, here it is. I'd just like to show everyone where we are driving and why are we driving in this area. So let me just quickly go to the map. So if I put it over here, is the sun all right with it there, Masa? Yeah. Okay. So I just want to focus. So this morning we went all the way up on this section here to find those lines, and then from there on we did a little trip all the way down into the river. That's where we saw the Vervet monkeys, the rose eagle owl, and then from there on we did a loop. We're on this road now and exploring a bit of this section here. Now it is quite open, and what we're trying to see if there's any signs of wild dogs or cheetah. We tried for leopard this morning, but with it warming up now, there's a chance they might just move into a bit of shade, or even later on go and move into quite a dense area, possibly looking out for opportunity to hunt, whereas with wild dogs and cheetah, they prefer the open area. So that's why we're going to just explore this area, and if nothing, maybe we'll go back into the river a little bit later on, or just a road right next to the river. For now, let's carry on with our search. But so nice seeing the southern ground hornbills, always a nice treat in the morning, on an early morning. Shira, good question. We don't go to different... sorry, was it parks or parts? Marcel?
Also known like
Yeah, I think if it, because it just broke up a little bit there, but if it's different parks, no, we stay on the same area, but we do go to different parts of the reserve. And I mean, it's so with andBeyond Ngala, it's a pretty big reserve, nearly 15,000 hectares, or close to, I think I worked it out the other day, 37,000 acres. And this is the area that we explore. But however, with andBeyond, it allows us, especially with the rangers, to travel to different reserves. So I initially guided up at andBeyond Pinda. I guided out of most of the lodges, or helped out at most of the lodges. And then we also have an opportunity to guide over other camps in Kirkmans. And then, of course, here at andBeyond Ngala. So we have that opportunity to move onto different areas. And so also some of the rangers will do a little swap out. I remember my first time when I was introduced to Ngala, so I was at andBeyond Pinda Mountain Lodge, and one of the other rangers were here at Ngala, and we said, okay, he desperately wanted to see how Pinda is and guide a little bit there, and I wanted to see Ngala, so we did a swap for, I think it was 5 weeks. And then after that, I do say I fell in love with Ngala. And I still, like, Pinda has a very, very special place in my heart. And I would always say that. It is an amazing place. So what we're going to do from here, we haven't seen anything in those open areas. I tried to scan. Well, there's some more open areas coming up. So we'll still carry on, see if there's any signs, maybe go do that loop past, one more loop past the river, see if there's any signs of leopard. But while we do that, let's head across to James, because apparently he might go to that little grebe.
Yes, we are arriving at the grebes, the little ones, the little grebes, and also the hippopotamus that likes to play with a stick. I don't know if he is playing with a stick. I did see him moving around a bit though, so maybe he's playing with a stick. Right, here we are. Very smooth dam wall. There are the little grebies. A green-backed heron is flying off, high speed. There we are, BK. Now we can relax and watch our little grebe friends. Now, while you were watching the lions today, I went off to Buffelshoek Waterhole, which is in the northeast corner of Djuma. And there's another pair there, and they've got 2 babies as well. And they're about the same age as these two, I think. And they were doing much the same as these two are doing now. And I know that you have met those ones, but they were very shy to start with, but now seem to be much more confiding. Kirsten says she loves these ones more. Why is that, Kirsten? She says she's more emotionally invested in these two. Yes, I think we all are, because we've watched them from eggies, haven't we? There's something causing a fair amount of irritation to the francolins and squirrels of this region. So we'll just keep an eye out in front of us as we watch the little grebes doing their thing. Yes, Wild K, it is quite impressive how big they're getting, isn't it? They really do look like little toy ducks that you'd have on your bath. Waiting desperately for Mum to pop up. Yes, Carl, this is not the problem, but this is exactly what Kirsten's actually talking about. She says it feels like we've raised them, which of course is ridiculous, but that's exactly right. It's precisely what it feels like. It really is a lovely time of year, this out here, just as the seasons change. Dizzy, you are aware that Dewey the hippopotamus pooped upon the nest of the grebes, and you want to know if he's done it again. I don't know. I don't know how much time they spend on the nest, but for the evenings. But I don't know if he's managed to poop upon them again. For those of you who don't know what that means, this hippopotamus who lives in here one evening came wandering across to where their nest is, and they've got two nests that they use as bases just on the shores here, and he relieved himself upon it. He did that hippopotamus thing where he flapped his tail up and down or from side to side and sprayed dung all over the home of the little grebes, which I think we must all admit was not a very nice thing for him to have done. Those grebes are so vulnerable like that. I know it does, doesn't it, Claudia? It makes me feel slightly seasick when I see them. It does look very rough indeed. Ruby, you say the mother grebe was splashing water at Dewey the hippopotamus yesterday morning. Yeah, they're quite aggressive little things, and so they should be. They need to be. See the two of them just floating expectantly there as the breeze whips up a very slight ripple. Elsie, Chrissy, you say that Dewey was showing off terribly today. Well, that is exciting. I'm afraid he's not doing it anymore. He's just lurking currently. You can hear them calling. One of them's feeding way off to the northern side of the waterhole. Dominique, it just depends on whether there's enough water. I don't know if they'd stay here or not. You know, we haven't had grebes here for a long time because there hasn't been any water in this waterhole. So I don't know if there's enough space for another couple of grebes. So perhaps they'll stay here for a year or two if there's enough water. And then I suspect they'll probably move on. And there, as we were talking about the fact that male birds play such a huge role in raising their chicks quite often, well, here's a great example of it. Now, everybody, I know that leopards, lions, hyenas, cheetahs, wild dogs are a highlight of the day, and we all look for them all the time. But if there is one thing that can trump all of those things combined in the same sighting, it is, of course, Marcel's fact of the day.
So this is that time of the morning. You can see Marcel, like he's blushing already. It's the fun fact of the day. So here we go.
Thanks, Nikki, and thanks, James, for the compliment. So Porsche, the German vehicle manufacturer, they also have a long history in South Africa. The first Porsche dealer in South Africa was established in 1952. And also, the largest Porsche center in the world, sales center, is actually in Johannesburg on Witkoppen Road. It's over 18,000 square meters, and it has more than 330 parking bays. So, yeah, that's my fact for today. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcel. That's pretty interesting. All right, shall we carry on with the drive? So it is getting a little bit later on than this morning. So what I think is we'll probably hang on to that leopard search for this afternoon and see if there's any signs then. But I think for now we're still going to explore. You'll see where myself and Marcel stood this morning. We are near one of the riverbeds as we speak. So we're going to continue our loop and see if there's any further signs. Now at the back we saw some leopard tracks, but let's carry on, see if there's anything. In the meantime, let's head across to Lauren and hear if she has an update for us.
I have had luck with nothing today, I'm afraid. It has not been a lucky morning. We tried really hard to look for those elephants. They were called in over the radio, so we raced up to see if we could find them. But elephants, of course, move, and they move fast. I thought they might have gone to Buffelshoek Dam for a drink, but sadly not. It's obviously not that time in the morning where they're thirsty yet. So lots of tracks, which is good news for this afternoon. There's definitely leopards moving in this area. Just where the leopards are, that's the question. And I received the Panthera report, as many of you know. Hopefully the next shift I'm on, I'll be able to share the maps with you. They're almost ready. And when you actually look at the Nkahuma sort of sightings from the past quarter, it's done every 3 months, it's unbelievable. There's not one pin on Djuma. Not one. And it really does show you this sort of complete shift in the Nkahuma territory, which is sad if you think about it, but there's definitely been a shift. And looking at these sightings report, you can actually visually see it, which is really fascinating. So hopefully, next shift I am with you, I will be sharing these maps and you can visually see it for yourself. Not the Panthera ones, my own little creations. Okay, we're doing a last minute quarantine search. And let's see if we can find anybody up there. Sarik here? No, they haven't. We don't have any collared animals. I think there was a collared leopard in the past, but here in Djuma, any of the animals that sort of roam the northern sector of the Sabi Sands have not been collared. One of the hyenas in the Masai Mara that we used to follow, her name was Waffles, she was collared. And I believe one of the leopards that is no longer traversing in this area from a while back was collared. Hello, wildebeest, I'm sorry to disturb you. Why do you all love sitting on the roads? But yes, there's no animals that are collared or chipped or tracked, at least in this area, in the areas that we traverse. I think it would be really fascinating to find out exactly where animals move. I really would. But of course, there's lots of ethical, moral, and just general problems that come along with that. We actually satellite tagged many turtles in the Maldives. And once you release them, it's normally turtles that have been rehabilitated, you release them, you're able to track them completely and see their whole range of movements across the global oceans. And it's fascinating to really see where one individual animal moves and why they move. Where are they going? What are they doing? And you can visually see, of course, humans are very visual animals. Information is said to go to our brain, if it's visually, 60,000 times faster than text. So we are really visual creatures, and we're able to see using these satellite maps that the turtles wander the global oceans. There's no restrictions, of course. There's no fences or blocks in the oceans. And they return to their natal beach, the same beach that they were born, almost to the exact spot. But of course, over time, land change. And that's where they lay their eggs. So they're able to map in their brain most likely using the sort of Earth's internal GPS system, the tectonic plates and movements from the Earth. They're able to navigate to the exact beach where they hatched as an egg to lay their eggs. And of course, it's only the females that do this. And you can see this all happening. So I do think tagging animals is really, really fascinating. But of course, out here, it's rather tricky. There's a chance it could get abused for tourism or for selfish reasons. Okay, I'm going to do my last little wander around quarantine, see if anyone's around. But for now, we're going to send you across to James at the pan.
We are just going to also do our last little session here with the grebes. That is their nest, upon which Dewey the hippopotamus decided to relieve himself. But they're not there at the moment. I think they probably spend their evenings there, the grebes. I mean, not Dewey. Dewey goes eating in the evening. And then the grebes are out way at the end of the waterhole now. It's amazing, actually, how far they go. You see them there, BK? Just two little blips floating across the water there. There we are. Just right. That's it, you got them. Center. Desert. Sparrow, the chicks are being fed insects and maybe the odd frog, but it's largely insects and things that the grebe manages to catch in the water. They really are getting quite big, aren't they? I think they're much too big to get onto Mum's back now, I would have thought. It's amazing how fast birds grow, it really is. It does look like it's such rough water out there for little things like that. That's BK hitting some rough water. It's the caterpillar that tried to chew his ear off. Don't worry, he's got rid of it now. Thank you, Tony. You say it's another drive that was full of interesting stuff, and you're using the term stuff in its scientific way. Yeah. We had a president like that here once. He used to say, and I've done my research and stuff, and I always found it very convincing when somebody finishes a sentence with "and stuff." It makes you feel convinced that they have done all the required research. Thank you, Tony. Hope things are going all right for your network, shall we call it. My wife has just told me that we are going to finish the drive now in exactly 1 minute. It seems appropriate. This the last comment we had came from Tony. And we finish it in a way that will be familiar to him. So that's what we're going to do. Things are very quiet out here, but as always, as Tony was pointing out, you know, you can always find a spider or an insect, a dragonfly, maybe a nest of a bird, a caterpillar that was shedding its own skin. I mean, that's quite something. Two little harmless birds here, you know, wouldn't hurt a fly. They definitely would hurt a fly. In fact, they hurt flies all the time. Different kinds of flies. They hurt them all the time. Never thought of it like that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you later at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Until then, bye-bye.